Well, hello. Hopefully you can see me. I'm Chris Cannon. I'm hidden Liverpool. There's just me. So thank you for following me, first of all, and thank you for joining us on this little quiz. Right, I'm just going to wait for a little bit longer. We've currently got, I think, 15 or 16 players with us. Going to give it a couple more minutes, let them join up. So anyway, thank you for joining us. As I said, you have to excuse it happening a bit later than normal. As always, technology fails me. I've had everything set up over several days. It's all been working fine, and all of a sudden today it decides to go completely wrong. I don't know whether it is simply because I've decided to change my broadband provider. It's a bit of a coincidence, don't you think? Yes, but anyway, so we've got 19 people. We'll just wait for them to log on now. I'll give it one more minute and then we'll start. I'll give you a quick rundown of what is the format is. So first of all, we've got 40 multiple choice questions. There you go, 40 multiple choice questions, and on top of that, there are 20 questions that are associated with Liverpool people. And then there are 15 general history questions, and there are 5 landmark questions. So you might think you'll be able to cheat by going onto Google. I've taken that into account. You've only got 10 seconds to answer each question, and if you've logged on completely and correctly, you should have a little keypad in front of you. For each question, you'll see a countdown. That's when your keypad will be live. You have to answer as quickly as possible because points are awarded on how quickly you answer. And at the end of it, we'll see who's won, and the winner we'll get this absolutely no expense spared certificate. It's going to be delivered by, of course, email. So yeah, you'll have to let me know your name and I will obviously tailor it for you. So we've got a couple more people logged on. I'm going to wait a little longer, maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes. And we hope this goes well. As I said, I've had some problems with my internet today. So I do apologise massively if we have the lines drop on us. So 21 users. Hello all, and welcome to the quiz. So this is what the board looks like. The board is going to have a question which appears in that black box, and then immediately as the question appears, the answers will appear as well. Now you have to use your keypads to answer those questions. The questions will be alive for 10 seconds only, and to help you realise how long you've got left, I do have a nice little timer. So, are we ready? First question, here it comes. Who won Rear of the Year 2001? Now let's have a look. We've got quite a few people who didn't answer in time. Maybe that's because they're not used to the keypad yet. But we've got a couple of people who've got it right and one has got it wrong. So let's have a look who won Rear of the Year in 2001. Yes, it was Claire Sweeney. and there is the famous rear itself. So you kind of guess an idea of the sort of questions you're going to get. There are more serious ones later on, obviously. Out of curiosity, when I was searching for Rear of the Year, of course for research purposes, I did find that Jennifer Ellison won in 2008, and Natasha Hamilton from Atomic Kitten, she actually won in 2003. So on with the next question. Okay, 10 seconds on the clock, and the question is... Yes, I see everybody's got that one right. Of course, it was Sherry Booth. Now, Sherry Booth, she grew up on Ferndale Road in Waterloo, actually. See, nobody picked Chrissy Rock. Poor Chrissy. And Bessie Braddock, of course, the famous politician, she didn't get a look in either. So there we go. Next question coming up. Question number 3. And the question is... Hang on. Let's switch the slide first. It does help, of course. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Right, I see one person's got one wrong. Most of you have got it right. And let's see who got it wrong, just out of curiosity. Well, it'll be mean to say, really, wouldn't it? But I think you know who it is in a moment. The answer is, of course, Katarina Johnson-Thompson. The ones who got it wrong said Beth Tweddle, rather. It's understandable. She is Olympian as well. And also, the answer C there, Adrienne Bennett. She was an Olympian as well. She competed in the 25-metre pistol event at the 1984 Summer Olympics. Okay, a bit easier one now. Next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And next question is... Okay, now let's have a look at the answers there. Somebody said Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. Wrong cathedral, I'm afraid. He designed the Anglican Cathedral. The designer of the Metropolitan Cathedral of Christ the King, Paddy's Wigwam, of course, that was Frederick Gibbard. A picture of him there. The very first picture I'd actually seen of Frederick Gibbard, that was, to be honest. Yeah, a bit of a curveball there. I knew some people would choose the wrong cathedral. Okay, next one. Next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Right, that's an interesting one. We've got quite a few people said King John as the founder of modern Liverpool, and we've got one person saying, well, a few people actually, by the look of it, saying William Duncan. Now, King John, he founded the borough of Liverpool. He wasn't the founder of modern Liverpool. The person who's known as the founder of modern Liverpool is actually Sir Thomas Johnson. Now, Sir Thomas Johnson was mayor in the 1690s, and he was one of the part funders of Liverpool's first slaving mission to Africa. He made a lot of money that. He was already a millionaire, by the way. He didn't need to go slaving, but he did anyway. And because of what he did and the money that started bringing in, he is known as the founder of modern Liverpool. William Duncan, we know him better as Dr. Duncan William Henry Duncan, that was. Okay, next question. Oh, hang on a second, didn't get the answer up there, did I? There we go. And Sir Thomas Street, obviously, is named after Sir Thomas. The land, actually, Sir Thomas Street is on. That was the land that was actually owned by Sir Thomas himself. So, on with the next question. And the next question coming up is... Right, okay, the answer for this one, who was Liverpool's first consul to the United States, is James Mowbray. Now, James Mowbray, that's a portrait of James Mowbray there in Liverpool Town Hall. And I believe from the little thing that was underneath it on the Echo's website, that's two Americans looking at him. That's the only description I got. Now, the other people on there, we've got James Dunwoody Bullock, which somebody thought was the right answer. James Dunwoody Bullock was actually the spy master for the Confederates. He was responsible for paying for a lot of the things such as weapons and the ships that were built. It was James Dunwoody Bullock. And somebody mentioned William Ewart Gladstone, 4 times Prime Minister. No, he wasn't Liverpool's first consul. In fact, a lot of people say Liverpool had the world's first United States consul. We didn't actually. The first States consul was William Palfrey. He was from Massachusetts, and he was consul to France. He had his offices in Bordeaux. He went there in 1780, whereas Mowbray only came... Mowbray was already working in Liverpool. He was a tobacco merchant. He actually took up the consul's job 10 years later in 1790. Next question coming up. 10 seconds on the clock. And here's the question. Okay, right. Whose father wrote and sang on an advert for R. White's Lemonade? It wasn't Les Dennis, no. A lot of people got this right. It was Elvis Costello's father. Here we go. And there's a picture of the advert. You might recognise the gentleman there on the right. Ross McManus wrote the advert and he sang along on us. Actually, Elvis did the backing, what's his name? Declan McManus, wasn't he? He'd actually did the backing vocals on that. That actor name is Julian Chagrin. It wasn't Ross McManus. A lot of people think it was actually Elvis's dad who actually played on the advert. It actually wasn't. Okay, next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is coming now. Right, I do apologise to people on that one. I noticed it did have an internet dropout, so some people might not have been able to answer that one in time. The answer, of course, of who took over as the host of Family Fortunes after Max Bygraves is Les Dennis. And here's a picture of the man himself. Was he actually ever that young? I don't remember him being that young. So, on to the next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Who was known for talking to his guide Sam? It was, of course, Derek Acora. Everybody got that one right. And Sam, if you're ever interested to find out who Sam was, of course I did my research, I looked it up. Sam was somebody who Derek met in a previous life, 2,000 years previously in that case, and he was a friend of the family when Derek was an Ethiopian boy. So there you go. What's that, Sam? Okay, next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question coming up. Which Beatle has a brother that was in the scaffold? Yep, of course, Paul McCartney. And there's Paul and his brother, Mike McGear, as he called himself. And also the scaffold recently released a remake of Thank You Very Much in aid of NHS charities. It was only a few weeks ago, that was, I think. A relatively easy question that was. I can tell it's easy because everybody got it right. Okay, next question coming up. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Who wrote the novel, The Hell-Bound Heart? Now, we've got a nice distribution of answers here. Majority of you got it right, actually. It was, of course, Clive Barker. That's Clive Barker there, a picture of him. That's him on the left, by the way. It's one of his creations on the right there, Pinhead. You might know the Hell-Bound Heart novels as Hellraiser. Ramsey Campbell, another famous horror writer from Liverpool. Colin Vernicombe, some people said. Colin Vernicombe is a singer out of Black. And we've also got Peter Serrano, kind of his Polish name there, Peter Serranowicz, I think it is. No, he wasn't an author. He's an actor. You might recognise him. In fact, he might be mentioned later on in the quiz, so I'm not going to tell you who he actually played. Okay, so next question coming up. Let's clear that one off. Put 10 seconds on the clock. Next question is... Who is the lead singer of OMD, Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark? One of my favourite bands in the 1980s. Now let's have a look at what we've got here. Yep, most of you have got it right. Whoever answered Paul Humphreys, close, he was the other member of the band. A couple of people mentioned Ian McCulloch there. Ian McCulloch is actually the lead singer from Echo and the Bunnymen. And the last chap, Peter Hooton, from The Farm, I think. Okay, so next question. Clear that one off. Oh, hang on, I forgot to bring his picture up. There you go. That's Andy in the front. And Peter McCluskey, sorry, Paul Humphreys is standing just behind him there. Okay, clear that one off. Ready for the next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... What is the name of the backing singer and dancer in Frankie Goes to Hollywood? Yeah, majority have got this right here. It is, of course, Paul Rutherford. There he is, Paul Rutherford. Did you know Paul Rutherford used to work with Pete Burns in Probe? And before that, he was in Aunt Twacky's, the alternative store, which used to be in the building which became Flanagan's Apple. It's a picture of Paul there. Let's see what other answers we've got. Ian McNabb, no, he was singer from the Icicle Works. We've got one person who says it was James Skelly. No, another musician. He's coming up later possibly, so I'm not going to tell you who he was with. So we'll clear this question off. On to the next one. 10 seconds on the clock, and the question is... Who is the lead singer of The Mighty War? Let's have a look. Majority of you got this right here. I always said Peter Hooton was a singer at the farm. Who's picked Peter Hooton? Okay, so somebody's picked Pete Burns. Now, Pete Burns was from... Well, I can't remember the name of the band. It's terrible. I've met him as well. I'm sure somebody can tell me that later on. It is, of course, Dead or Alive. There you go. It answers Pete Wiley. There's a picture of Pete Wiley coming up. There he is. Obviously, in his more recent days, when I went to see him when he was in the Mighty War many, many years ago, he wasn't carrying so much weight. In fact, Pete might be watching now. Sorry, Pete, if you're watching. Here's one of my followers. Okay, so on to the next question. That one's cleared off. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Whose son is also known as AYRTON WILBURY? Now, that was a bit of a toughie one, but a lot of you got it right. It is, of course, George Harrison's son, Darnie. The clue is in Wilbury, because if you remember George Harrison when he was in the mega band with Tom Petty from the Heartbreakers, it was called the Travelling Wilburys. Also had Roy Orbison in the band as well. That's Darnie on the right there. You can see how much he looks like his dad when his dad was young. So, next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Who played Len Fairclough in Coronation Street? One of our most loved soap operas, and no surprising here, most of you got this one right. Somebody said Kenny Everett. Okay. So let's see who got it right. It was, of course, Peter Adamson. Doug Bradley, somebody's chosen. Doug Bradley was actually the chap who played Pinhead in Hellraiser. You saw his picture earlier. Him standing behind Clive Barker. There's Len Fairclough there. I hope the picture brings back memories. I remember watching good old Len when I was back with my parents, back when I was a lot younger. Okay, so next question. Clear that one off. Well, this is I think you all should get this question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Who was the original bass player of the Beatles? Yeah, most of you got that right. I was going to throw in a bit of a curveball as well. I was going to mention Paul McCartney in there because he plays the bass now. But it wasn't him. Of course, the first bass player of the Beatles was Stuart Sutcliffe. There he is, the picture of him appearing. That's Stuart. Handsome lad that he was. And behind him there is Astrid Kirchner, his girlfriend. Astrid is also known as the person who created the Beatles style. Stuart unfortunately died of a brain hemorrhage in Hamburg. He left the Beatles to become an artist because that was his true passion, really, more than music. So it's another music question coming up, and clear this one off. And the next question is, after 10 seconds on the clock, of course. Here we go. Who is the lead singer? What lead singer? The lead singer of The Teardrop Explodes. Let's have a look. Yep, majority of you there got that right. Somebody said Pete Burns. I already mentioned Pete Burns before, being dead or alive. I wonder if people pay this much attention when I'm doing my tours. Anyway, so nobody said Paul McCartney, I'm glad to say. So that's Julian Cope. Here's a picture of him coming up. Julian Cope, as mad as a box of frogs he is. I've seen him live a few times. Probably one of the most fantastic live performers I've ever seen. If you get the chance to see him live, would recommend it. Okay, clear that one off. And there's another music question, I think, from where I can make out my little tiny thumbnail, which you can see there. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Who had a mother whose maiden name was Gleave? That's a tough one, that. The answer is Ringo Starr. A couple of people said George Melly. That's a good guess. And somebody said Pete Burns. And we've even got Ian McNabb. It's actually got a pretty fair distribution of answers there then. I'll have to make sure they're all hard like this one next time I'm doing a quiz. Okay, so the next question coming up, let's clear that one off. And bringing up, oh, it's a tough one, this one, I think. Okay, 10 seconds on the clock. If it works. There we go, 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Right, I did notice there we had some stuttering on the stream, so you might not have got a full 10 seconds there. Apologies for that. Blame my service provider. What is the name of the pub manageress who gave information that led to the arrest of Dr. Crippen? Let's have a look at the answers here. Looks like only one person got this right. The answer wasn't Tess Riley. It wasn't Mary Mallon. Mary Mallon is actually Typhoid Mary. She was the person who passed typhoid around most of New York. She was asymptomatic, but a carrier. Kind of apt at the moment, don't you think? It was, in fact, Ma Edgerton. Now, Ma Edgerton, her real name is Mary. She was a theatrical agent, as well as owning several pubs. She owned 3 pubs, in fact. As well as the one we call Ma Edgerton's now. That's called the Eagle originally. Excuse me. She also owned the American Bar, which became the American Irish Bar on Lime Street. And she had one called Edgerton's on Cases Street as well. Now Mary, as I mentioned, she was a theatrical agent. And she was very good friends with Belle Crippen, who was Dr. Crippen's wife. And she saw a known mistress of Crippen wandering around London wearing Belle's clothing and, more importantly, very, very expensive jewellery that Belle would never ever be seen without. So she went to the police and reported her suspicions to them. The police started their investigation and found Belle's remains. Sent a massive search out for Dr. Crippen. He'd fled the country, by the way. He'd ran off to Canada. But by using this newfangled Marconi set, they managed to get a radio signal to the passenger ship he was on. It was a White Star ship. They actually sent it from the White Star building in Liverpool. And when he was brought back to the UK to stand for his crimes, he actually was brought into Liverpool port. He was brought off the landing stage. An awful lot of people, several thousand people, turned up to see him being brought off the ship. So, on to the next question. Now, we've gone through all the people there. Now we're going on to general history questions. Some are easy, some not so easy. And so let's see how you get on. So the first question in the general history side of things is coming up after 10 seconds on the clock, and the question is who was the Port of Liverpool building built for? Now, I noticed I had some stuttering on the internet connection again, so apologies for that. It was, of course, built for Mersey Docks and the Harbour Board. Let's see who's put down various answers there. We've got somebody said it was the Mersey Docks and Seamen's Company, and somebody says the Mersey Port Authority. I suppose it was the Port Authority, but it was called the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board. Mersey Docks and Harbour Company now. And there's a picture of the beautiful building itself. Next question coming up. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... from what did Florence Maybrick allegedly extract the poison to kill her husband? Let's have a look. A lot of people said flypapers. Somebody said mothballs. And we got a couple of people said nightshade berries. The answer, well, the majority of you got, of course, was flypapers. And there's Florrie there on the left, and of course James Maybrick, husband, on the right of the picture. So Florrie, the main evidence against Florence was from her maid. Her maid had said she'd seen Florence boiling up or just soaking flypapers to extract the arsenic. And when it was found that James had died of arsenic poisoning, the suspicion immediately went on to Florence. She was found guilty of it, and she was sentenced to hang. She didn't hang, in fact, because 4 days before the sentence was to be passed, the Home Secretary stepped in because it turned out that various bits of evidence had been missed. And also the judge had actually said quite a few things which are now not allowed. For example, he said to the jury something along the lines of, "If you find this woman innocent, I will be very disappointed. She is an adulteress. Therefore, you cannot believe a word she has said on that stand." Thankfully, we don't have judges these days. Well, I'm sure we do, but they're simply not allowed to say stuff like that anymore. And that was because of that case, believe it or not. Okay, clear that one off. Next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... which is the oldest street in Liverpool? Let's have a look. Most of you got this one right. It's Chapel Street, of course. The other one's Mount Pleasant, North John Street and Church Street. Not quite so old as Chapel Street. In fact, it's believed that Chapel Street was the very, very first road which was laid out after King John had specified he wanted 7 streets in our little borough at the time. So, next question coming up, and I think the majority of you will get this one. Okay, that one's cleared off. 10 seconds on the clock. Next question is... in which part of Liverpool Cathedral can you find a memorial to Kitty Wilkinson? It is, of course, the Lady Chapel, and I was correct. The majority of you got that correct right. A couple of people said the Great Hall. There's a memorial to Kitty Wilkinson in the Great Hall of St. George's Hall. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. And there is a photograph of the window itself. she's there in what's known as the Noble Women windows. It's quite another. I'm trying to think who else is there. Josephine Butler, of another famous Liverpool ladies there. Also, there's a few ladies there, not necessarily from Liverpool as well. Beautiful window, worth going to see if you've never seen it. It's in the Lady Chapel, so you go down to the Lady Chapel, turn right, and you can see the window there. Okay, clear that one off. And the next question, 10 seconds on the clock. The question is... What was the name of the first ship to enter Thomas Steers Dock? Thomas Steers Dock we now know as the Old Dock. It's underneath Liverpool 1. Let's see who answers here. We've got a few people who said the Liverpool Merchant. That's a good guess. Now, the Liverpool Merchant was the first slaving ship to leave Liverpool. That went out in 1698. It wasn't the first to use the new dock. The first to use the new dock was the Mulberry. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers Canning Place, the ugly building that used to stand where Liverpool 1 is now, over roughly where John Lewis is. There was actually two big buildings there. One was called Mulberry House, named after, of course, the Mulberry ship, and the other one was called Steers House, named after Thomas Steers. And let's see, somebody said the Diddy Man. I think the less said about that, the better. And Queen Anne, good guess, but wrong. So, on to the next question. Clear that one away. Oh, I keep forgetting to press my button to bring my pictures up, don't I? There we go. It's another shipping question, actually. That is actually a picture of the Mulberry, believe it or not. It was owned by Brian Blundell. Now, Brian Blundell was one of the founders of Blue Coat Chambers. So, next question. Clear that one away. And 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Which shipping line built the India buildings? It was Blue Funnel. Now let's see what we've answered there. A few people got this one right. A couple of people said Cunard. No, Cunard, of course, is a different building altogether. India Buildings, by the way, did you notice it's called India Buildings, but it's only one building? The reason for that is when it was being constructed, it was actually built as two separate buildings with a covering over a road. It's called Chorley Street. And that was part of the deal they made with the corporation to be able to build that. So, and that is a picture of one of the Blue Funnel ships. I'm not sure which one it is, I'm afraid. It's just a nice picture I found on Google. Okay, so next question. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... How many stations were there on the overhead railway when it closed? 19, 17, 16 or 18? There were 17. And there you go, that's an actual map of the overhead railway there coming up. Let's see. The majority of you got this. Actually, no. The majority of you said 13 stations. And interestingly enough, somebody said 19. There were 19 stations throughout the life of the railway, but 2 of them closed by the time the railway itself was shut down. So, next question coming up. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... What was the name of the submarine that sank during its trial in Liverpool Bay in 1939? Was it Proteus, Thetis, Memphis, or Nautilus? All names of various submarines. It was Thetis. The majority have got this one right. And there's a photograph of the poor stricken Thetis there. That's its stern sticking out the water. What happened was they were doing a test opening of the torpedo hatches, and they checked whether the outward doors of the torpedo tube were closed by testing for water coming in, and no water was coming through. So what they did is they opened the torpedo tube completely. Unfortunately, what had happened was paint had got jammed in the valve, which made them think there was no water in the tube. The water rushed in quickly, and the force of it sank the front of the ship, hence the reason why the back was sticking out the water as at low tide, by the way. Unfortunately, because the Ministry of Defence didn't want to damage the submarine, they didn't want to risk cutting a hole in the hull, all 99 people on it died. They all suffocated. Only 69 of the crew were actually sailors. The rest were mainly engineers from Camelot who'd actually built the submarine. On to a lighter subject now. Next question coming up. 10 seconds on the clock. And the question is... Which was the first building in Liverpool to have electric lights installed? Let's have a look at the answers here. We've got St George's Hall, the Town Hall, the Philharmonic Dining Rooms, or the Picton Library. Now we've got quite a few, quite a nice distribution of answers here. The answer, in fact, is the Picton Library. Quite a few of you said St George's Hall. Now St George's Hall was one of the earliest buildings in the UK to have lights, but it was in fact after the Picton Library. St George's Hall had electric lights installed, I think it was 1895. So it's a lovely picture of the Picton Reading Room there, as it's called now. One of the most beautiful libraries in the world. It's one of those places I always try to take people when I've got tours going, always taken aback by how beautiful it is. One of the strange things about the Picton Reading Room though is the shape of it. It's a circle, which makes everything look fantastic, but it amplifies noises something terrible. So any little noise in the library sounds like a tsunami going off. It's quite amusing when you see somebody cough and get shocked by how loud it sounds. So the next question coming up, let's clear that one away. 10 seconds on the clock, and the question is... Which building in Liverpool, obviously, is one of the world's first to be built with reinforced concrete? Now let's look at the answers here. Majority have got this right. A couple of people said Martin's Bank. Martin's Bank wasn't built until about 30 years after this particular building. And it was, of course, the Royal Liver Building at the Pierhead, one of the fabulous Three Graces. When they built it, they weren't sure whether the new fangled method of using reinforced concrete will be strong enough to actually hold the building up. Thankfully, it has proved to be correct. It still stands today. Beautiful building, hated when it was first built. Things don't change, eh? Modern buildings, who likes them? Nobody. Next question, let's clear this one away. 10 seconds on the clock, and the question is... No extra points for spotting my spelling mistake. Where would you find the statue, or the statue, as it should say, of Eleanor Rigby? Penny Lane, Stanley Street, Hyde Street or Matthew Street? It is on Stanley Street. Majority of you have got this correct. A couple of people said Matthew Street. Seems like a good idea, doesn't it, for being related to the Beatles? But no, it was Stanley Street. And there's the statue itself before the Echo was stolen. If you go there now, I don't know if it's been replaced yet, but somebody stole the brass Echo with a little robin sitting on her. Next question coming up, we'll clear Eleanor away and bringing 10 seconds onto the clock. And the question is... which building has 500 toilets in it? It's an interesting one to find out. I actually had to look this one up myself. It is the QE2 Law Courts. And actually, most of you got this one right. A couple of people have said St George's Hall. Now, St George's Hall doesn't have that many toilets, which you can tell if you're desperate when you're watching something in there. There's only a very few. And one person has actually said the Liver Buildings. Now, Liver Buildings, big building, hasn't got 500 toilets in though. Clear that one away. Next question coming up. 10 seconds on the clock, and your question is... what was the name of the hotel attached to Lime Street Station that was built in 1871? Was it the Midlands Hotel? Was it Northwestern Hotel, the Britannia Hotel, or the Holiday Inn? Yep, majority of you got this one right. It is, of course, the Northwestern Hotel, built as a railway hotel for the Northwestern Railway. It was also built the same year they extended Lime Street Station. I can't say much more about that because I might have a question about that later. Okay, clear that one away. Bring up the next question. First of all, 10 seconds on the clock, obviously. And your question is... now, Brian Epstein famously had a store called Nems, and it was on Whitechapel. But what did NEMS stand for? Let's see, majority have got this right. A couple of people have said New Epstein Music Sensations, which was famous for getting quite a lot of new bands going, but no, that's not the answer. And it wasn't New Excellent Music Stores either. The answer is, of course, North End Music Stores. And there's a picture of the store itself. Some of you might remember it before my time, though. Clear that one away. Next question coming up, 10 seconds on the clock, and your question is... on which road would you find the Sanctuary Stone? Tyne Street, Old Hall Street, Water Street or Castle Street? All pretty much in the same area, and pretty much all of you got this one right. It is, of course, Castle Street, and there's a picture of the stone itself. Now, the stone is the only medieval remnants of old Liverpool. We do have the street layout, but that is the only physical thing left. There are a lot of rumours, a lot of myths about the Sanctuary Stone. A lot of them are quite grandiose, but the actual reason why it exists is quite mundane. It was simply a marker of one of the corners of the town market. So any stories you may have heard, if you manage to stand on that stone, you'll be free from any of debts or crimes you committed. And also one of my favourite ones I've heard quite a lot is only if slave ships came into Liverpool, if the slaves managed to run and stand on that stone, they would be freed from slavery. No such luck. As I said, it was simply a marker for the medieval fairs. Right, so we've done 15 questions on the general history of Liverpool there. We've got 5 more questions left. Once we've gone through these 5 questions, we can find out who our Liverpool brainiac is. Okay, so 10 seconds on the clock. The next 5 questions are landmark questions, so you're going to see a photograph of somewhere, a close-up of something maybe, a hint of a building. You need to identify what that building is. So your first picture is this. Where is that? Is it the Liver building? Is it St George's Hall? Is it the Port of Liverpool building? Or is it the Cunard building? Well, again, a majority of you got this one right. Remember mentioning the Port of Liverpool building before? Mersey Docks and Harbour Board. And that is actually on the gates. You can see the gates there in front of the building. That is one of the logos on the actual gates there, still visible today. Okay, another question. Let's clear that one away. Putting 10 seconds on the clock. And your question is... your picture is... So, where was that? Let's have a look. Majority of you got this one right. A few people have said the town hall. Might be expected to be the town hall because it's obviously the coat of arms of Liverpool. That is in fact St George's Hall. It's the north end window. It's one of the windows which was put in 1883, and they were put in to celebrate Liverpool becoming a city only 3 years previously, in 1880. In fact, it was only yesterday, which was the anniversary of us becoming a city. We had a charter granted by Queen Victoria in 1880, as I mentioned. So there we go, and that's the Great Hall there. Beautiful, beautiful building. One of my favourite buildings in the entire world. Really miss working in there. So, on to the next question. Let's clear away that fantastic photograph. Put 10 seconds on the clock. And your next picture, which if you follow my Facebook page, you should be able to get this one. Next picture is... So, where is that? Is it the Blue Coat? Is it somewhere down Rodney Street? Somewhere down Hope Street? Or is it somewhere by the Royal Albert Dock? Every single one of you got this right. Well done. It was, of course, the Blue Coat. And there it is from the front. That little photograph there is the little garden and courtyard in the back. It's got a little cafe in there. Fantastic to sit there and have a nice cup of coffee. It's like a little oasis away from the hubbub. And that arch you can see there, if you go through that arch, that takes you right into Liverpool 1. And in fact, next door to there is the new probe, I think. That picture there, I wouldn't recommend sitting in the garden when it was like this. It was absolutely belting it down. I obviously go through all these troubles to take photographs for you lot. So there is the Blue Coat, and the next question coming up. Clear that one away. Put 10 seconds on the clock. And your question, or rather, your picture is this. Where is this? So, where would you see that sculpture? Is the Blue Coat? Possibly not, because we've just had that as an answer. St George's Hall? Looks like it could be St George's Hall. There's a lot of stuff like that around St George's Hall. The new municipal building? Maybe, because that has carvings on it too. Or is it the town hall? Well, quite a few people thought it was the new municipal building. It is, in fact, the town hall. It is one of the freezers around the outside. If you go to the left of the building, in between the Town Hall and Martin's Bank, if you look up the walls of the Town Hall, you can see the anchor just above or just below the roof line there. Worth looking around all the different sculptures they've got around the Town Hall, all telling the story of Liverpool and where we used to trade with. Interesting building. Again, another one which I miss quite a lot since I've been locked down. So we'll clear away the Town Hall and we'll bring up 10 seconds. The next picture coming up is this one. Where would you see this? Now it's an interesting one, this one. As you can see, that is the staff of Apollo with the two snakes on it. Majority of you got this one right. It is the Cunard building. The two snakes are Apollo. The single snake you see is Asclepius, I think the god's name is. Asclepius is the god of medicine, whereas Apollo is the god of commerce. And the anchors, the anchors and the Neptune's trident next to it obviously tell us it's a story of a seafaring building, and of course it is the Cunard building. Fantastic building. I used to work in there myself. Beautiful, beautiful inside. Again, if you look around the outside of the Cunard building, there are some fantastic sculptures. And that brings us to the end of the quiz. So, let's see what the results are. The results are calculating now. And, they're taking a while to come through this time. Let's have a look. I'm just trying to get the values up of who's won here. Oh, here we go. We do have a winner. And the winner is Facebook. Well, she's from Facebook. It's Maria B. Well done to Maria B. Now, Maria, of course, you get a wonderful electronic certificate delivered to you, but you need to let me know who you are. So there you go. That's my email address there. If you can email me, I'll get it sent out to you as soon as possible. I hope you've enjoyed the little quiz. I might do another one again in the future. Hopefully next time I won't have as many internet problems. I'm still having stutters now. I can see it occurring as I'm speaking. But if you've enjoyed it, drop me a line, leave something on my Facebook page or on my Twitter feed. Let people know what you thought. If it's anything bad, I will delete it, don't worry. No, of course I wouldn't. So thank you for joining us today, and congratulations to Maria B. Let's have a look at the full results. If I can bring them onto the screen. Might be able to bring it onto the main screen. Never tried this. Let's see if it works. There we go. Fantastic. I don't know if you can read that, but if you can't, we've got Maria B, who's won there. We've also got who came second. His response was actually very, very quick, but you got one of the answers wrong, I'm afraid, Andy Pandy 123. We've got Barb W with 27, and we've got Bluefields with 25. Sean F, well done, Sean, you've got 24, same as Tomo. And Spoctopus, love the name, Spoctopus, 23. What I'll do is I'll generate a full list of the winners and the losers, and shall I publish it? I'll just tell you what, I'll just publish the top 5 on the pages. So if you've come last, should we have a look who came last? Let's see, right down the bottom. To be fair, I think those bottom ones there, they're probably not real people. So Loopy Lauren, she got 9. And the rest of you, well done. You've answered them quite quickly. to be fair. So thank you very much for joining us today. As I said, please leave a little review, a little note, and as I said, I do apologise for some of the issues we had there. I said some things can't be helped, and maybe it is just a coincidence that I've decided to change my internet provider and things start going wrong then. So thank you for joining us, everybody, and this is me saying good night. Enjoy the rest of lockdown. I'm going for a beer now, and take care, everybody. Stay safe. Bye bye.